I came home after a major surgery and found my clothes in a cardboard box in the backyard. My daughter-in-law said without even looking at me, "I figured you weren't coming back, so I cleaned out your closet." I smiled calmly and replied, "That's great, because now I'm the one who's going to clean house, and I'm starting with you." And in that exact moment, all the color drained from her face. When I opened my eyes that morning in the hospital, I felt a weight on my chest that wasn't just from the surgery. It was something deeper, something that had been growing inside me for months, like a silent shadow. But I didn't know it yet. I still believed I was going home. I was wrong. The taxi pulled up in front of the house I built with my own 2 hands. That sand-colored house with the green front gate I painted myself 5 years ago. I paid $45 for that ride from the hospital. Every dollar hurt, not because of the money, but because no one came to pick me up. Not my son, not her. I walked slowly toward the entrance. The incision on my abdomen was still burning. 12 days hospitalized after my gallbladder decided to rebel against me. $14,500 out of my own life savings just to cover the deductibles and co-pays to save my life. And not a single visit. Well, that's not entirely true. Ruth, my neighbor of 30 years, came 3 times. She brought me homemade chicken soup in a thermos and held my hand when the nurses asked, "And your family, ma'am?" I lied. I always lied. "They're just tied up with work," I'd say with a smile that broke me inside. I pushed the front door open. The house was silent. A strange silence, as if something had been ripped out by the roots. It smelled different, like expensive perfume and cheap lavender air fresheners. It didn't smell like my morning drip coffee. It didn't smell like home. I dragged my small suitcase down the hallway. Every step was an effort. Every breath reminded me I was still alive, even though a part of me wished I couldn't feel anything. I reached my bedroom, or what used to be my bedroom. The door was wide open and inside. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. My bed was gone. The solid oak wardrobe I bought at the Rose Bowl flea market 20 years ago, gone. The framed photos of my late husband, of Michael when he was a little boy, of my mother, everything had vanished. My legs trembled. I gripped the doorframe. I felt the air escape my lungs. I walked faster than my recovering body allowed. I crossed the living room, walked past new furniture I didn't recognize, until I reached the backyard. And there it was. My entire life stacked in damp cardboard boxes, soaked by the morning dew. My clothes, my shoes, the blankets I knitted by hand, the books I read on lonely nights, my mother's rosary all tossed aside like trash someone forgot to take out to the curb. I stood paralyzed. I couldn't process what I was seeing. I couldn't understand how anyone could do this. And then I heard her voice. "Oh, mother-in-law, you're back." I turned around slowly. Brittany was standing in the doorway of the back patio, doing her makeup in a handheld mirror. My mirror, the silver one my husband gave me for our 10th anniversary. She didn't look at me. She didn't even glance up. "I figured you weren't coming back, so I cleaned out your closet. We needed the space for my beauty studio. You know, so I can work from home as an influencer." Her tone was so casual, so cold, as if she were talking about the weather. Something inside me snapped, but not in the way she expected. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. Instead, I felt something new, something I hadn't felt in years. Absolute clarity. I stared at her. Her eyes remained glued to the mirror, applying mascara with surgical precision. She was wearing a pale pink silk robe. Her nails were perfectly manicured. Her hair was pulled back in an elegant bun. And there I was, fresh out of the hospital, clothes wrinkled, hair unwashed, a fresh surgical scar under my blouse. I smiled. It was a strange smile, calm, almost dangerous. "That's great, because now I'm the one who's going to clean house, and I'm starting with you." Brittany stopped applying her makeup. For the first time in a long time, she looked at me. She really looked at me. And in her eyes, I saw something that gave me strength. Fear. All the color drained from her face. She went as pale as if she had seen a ghost. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. I kept smiling. I walked over to the boxes, bent down carefully so as not to pull my stitches, and picked one up. I carried it inside without saying another word. She stood there, frozen, mascara wand hovering in midair. And I knew, in that exact moment, that something had fundamentally shifted. I was no longer the same woman who had left this house 12 days ago. That woman died in the hospital. The one who came back was someone else, someone who was no longer afraid to clean out what needed to be cleaned. Because if there's one thing I've learned in my 67 years, it's this. Silence isn't peace. It's cowardice disguised as patience. And I was fresh out of patience. But what she didn't know, what no one in that house knew yet, was that I wasn't going to act out of rage. I was going to act with intelligence. Because rage is a fire that burns out quickly, but determination is a glowing ember that burns for days, and I was just getting warmed up. If this story has you hooked and you want to know how it ends, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single detail of what happened next, because nobody saw what was coming. Not even me. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat on the living room couch, surrounded by my boxes, staring at the walls of this house. Every crack, every scuff mark, every corner told a story. My story. This house didn't just appear out of nowhere. It wasn't a gift. I didn't inherit it. I ripped it from the world with my own 2 hands, with a broken back and bleeding knees. Let me take you back in time, to where it all started. I was 42 when Henry died, a massive heart attack while driving his cab. There was no time for goodbyes, no final conversation. Just a police officer at my door at 3 a.m., and my entire world collapsing in seconds. Michael was 12 years old, a little boy who still wet the bed when he had nightmares, a boy who asked me every night, "Mom, is Dad coming back?" And I, with my heart shattered into a million pieces, would lie to him. "Yes, sweetie, your dad will always be with us." But the truth is, we were alone, completely alone. The cab was a rental. Henry's life insurance didn't pay out a dime because he had forgotten to pay the last 3 premiums. We were left with $2,300, 2 suitcases of clothes, and a cramped rented room in the Pico Union neighborhood in Los Angeles that smelled like mildew and broken dreams. The landlord gave us 2 weeks to vacate. He said he needed the room for someone who could actually pay on time, as if my husband's death was just a minor inconvenience to him. I remember that night perfectly. Michael was sleeping on the floor on a thin mattress. I sat by the window, looking out at the city lights, wondering how we were going to survive. I could have given up. I could have moved back to Ohio to live off my sister's charity for the rest of my life, she offered. "Come back here, Martha. We have the space." But I knew what that meant. It meant being the poor sister, the widow with no future, the one who cleans and cooks in exchange for a roof over her head, the one who keeps her head down and says, "Thank you for the handouts." No, that wasn't for me, and it certainly wasn't for my son. So I made a decision that changed me forever. The next day, I went out looking for work. Any work. I knocked on doors. I left my name on crumpled pieces of paper. I walked until my feet bled. Nothing. Everyone wanted someone younger or with more experience, until I saw a flyer stapled to a telephone pole. Janitorial staff wanted, night shift, corporate office building in downtown LA. I went that very afternoon. The building manager looked me up and down. He was a heavy-set man with coffee stains on his shirt. He asked me 3 questions. "Can you work from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m.? Do you have a problem cleaning toilets? Do you need breaks?" I answered, "Yes, no, no." He hired me on the spot. The pay was minimum wage, barely $800 a month back then. A pittance, but it was a start. For 15 years, I worked there. 15 years cleaning floors no one ever looked at, sweeping empty cubicles while the rest of the city slept, mopping bathrooms where important executives left their filth without a second thought. Michael stayed home alone at night. I left his dinner prepared in the fridge, set alarms so he'd do his homework, and called him every 2 hours from the lobby payphone. He never complained. Well, not at first, but I needed more money. So, on weekends, I started baking. I'd wake up at 4 a.m. on Saturdays and Sundays. I baked dozens of homemade pies, muffins, and breakfast sandwiches. I sold them at a local farmer's market in Pasadena, $3 each. I could make $300 a weekend if I was lucky, sometimes more, sometimes less. Michael helped me. He wrapped the pastries, arranged the trays. He never told me he was exhausted. He never told me the kids at school made fun of him because his clothes always smelled like grease and cinnamon. I saved every dollar, every quarter. I stuffed them into an old coffee tin hidden under my bed. I didn't spend a dime on anything that wasn't strictly necessary. Thrift store clothes, shoes held together with duct tape, cheap groceries, and slowly, penny by penny, something began to grow inside that coffee tin. Hope. After 7 years, I had $18,000 saved. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I found this plot of land out in Silmar, in the San Fernando Valley. It was small, oddly shaped, on an unpaved road. Nobody wanted it. The asking price was $22,000. I told the owner I only had 18 grand. He looked at me with pity and accepted. I signed the deed with trembling hands. That dirt was mine. Mine. I hired a local contractor, Frank, an older guy who worked with his son. I paid them little by little, whenever I could. They framed the walls. I carried the cement bags. Michael, at 15, was already helping mix the mortar. It took us 4 years to finish it. 4 years of sacrifice, of eating rice and beans, of never buying new shoes, of not going to the movies a single time. But when we put in the final window, when we painted the last wall, when I planted the first oak tree in the backyard, I cried. I cried like I hadn't cried since Henry died, because that house wasn't just wood and drywall. It was my dignity. It was my promise to Michael that we were going to be okay. It was proof that a single woman, without a college degree, without help, could build something that no one could ever take away from her. Or so I thought. The house has 3 bedrooms, a backyard where I planted a lemon tree and a peach tree, a small living room flooded with natural light, and a kitchen where I cooked thousands of meals for my son. Today, it's worth $950,000, according to an appraisal I had done a year ago. But to me, it's priceless. Because every brick in these walls holds my sweat, every window reflects my sleepless nights, every corner echoes with the sound of my tired footsteps coming home from work. And now, after everything it cost me, after everything I sacrificed, someone wanted to snatch it from me. But that night, sitting among my boxes in the living room, surrounded by the ruins of my life, I made another promise. This house was mine, and nobody, absolutely nobody, was going to take it from me, even if I had to remind them, in the most painful way possible, who the real owner was. Because what Brittany didn't understand, what my own son had forgotten, is that a woman who builds her home with her own bare hands also knows how to defend it, and I was ready for war. Only this time, I wasn't going to fight with screaming and yelling. I was going to fight with something much more powerful, the truth. 3 years ago, Michael came home with a smile I hadn't seen since he was a little boy. He had that light in his eyes that only appears when someone falls in love. And I, like any mother, wanted to believe he had finally found happiness. I was so wrong. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was in the kitchen making a slow-cooked pot roast. The smell of beef, carrots, and rosemary filled the whole house. Michael walked in holding her hand. "Mom, I want you to meet someone." "This is Brittany." I looked up and saw her for the first time. She had long, straight hair, dyed that perfect shade of blonde that you only get at high-end salons. She wore tight designer jeans, a pristine white blouse, and heels that clicked against my kitchen floor like little hammers. Her nails were done in a flawless French tip. Her perfume was overpowering, the kind that costs hundreds of dollars a bottle. She looked me up and down just once, quickly, like someone evaluating a piece of used furniture before deciding if it's worth keeping. "Nice to meet you, Martha." Her voice was soft, but calculated. She smiled, but the smile never reached her eyes. I wiped my hands on my apron and extended my hand. She barely gripped the tips of my fingers, as if she were afraid of catching something. "The pleasure is mine, sweetheart. Come in, sit down. Dinner is almost ready." Michael was beaming. They sat at the dining table while I finished plating. I set the steaming dishes down. Mashed potatoes, green beans, the pot roast with gravy, fresh rolls. Brittany looked at her plate as if I had served her poison. "Oh, Martha, it looks delicious, but I'm actually doing keto right now. Do you have anything lighter? A salad, maybe?" I felt a sharp sting in my chest. I had spent 3 hours making that roast, 3 hours peeling vegetables, searing meat, making the gravy from scratch. "Of course, sweetie. I'll whip something up right now." Michael chimed in quickly, too quickly. "Don't worry, Mom. Brittany has to watch her figure. She's a wellness coach and yoga instructor. She has very high-end clients in Beverly Hills." A wellness coach, high-end clients. I swallowed the words I wanted to say and went back to the salad to make her a salad, lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, nothing else. No dressing. Because empty calories are toxic, as she put it. During dinner, Michael couldn't stop talking about how amazing Brittany was, how they had met at the upscale gym he went to on weekends, how she had taught him to value his body and live with intention. I just nodded, smiled, and asked the right questions. But something inside me didn't sit right. There was something about the way she looked at my house. Like she was taking inventory. Calculating. Planning. When they finished eating, Michael stepped outside to take a work call. Brittany and I were left alone at the table. She leaned forward with a smile that tried to pass as polite. "Martha, have you always lived here?" "Yes, sweetheart. I built this house years ago after my husband passed away." "Oh. How quaint." The word hit me like a bucket of ice water. "And have you always dressed like that?" I looked down at myself. I was wearing a floral blouse I bought at a thrift store 2 years ago, faded but clean jeans, and my usual comfortable orthopedic shoes. "I like to be comfortable, sweetie." Sure. It's just, well, if you ever want me to take you shopping to update your wardrobe, I have connections at Nordstrom. Nothing too crazy expensive, but something more modern. Because, with all due respect, Martha, sometimes people get stuck in the past without realizing it." She smiled. Michael walked back in right then. Her expression instantly shifted. "Your mom is just a sweetheart, babe. I was just telling her we're going to get along so well." Michael looked at me with that light in his eyes. The light of a son who thinks his mother will finally not be lonely anymore, that she'll have female companionship, that she'll be happy. And I, as always, kept my mouth shut. The following months were a succession of tiny jabs, little passive-aggressive comments wrapped in smiles, small humiliations disguised as concern. "Oh, mother-in-law, what is that smell? Like old people. Could it be mold? We should really change these drapes." "Martha, are you seriously still using that ancient blender?" "Michael, we need to buy her a Ninja. This thing belongs in a museum." "Hey, Martha, why do you have so many photos on the walls? It makes the house look so cluttered and gloomy. I'm really into minimalism, you know? Clean lines, modern." Every comment was a tiny paper cut, but Michael always laughed it off. He'd always say, "That's just how she is, Mom. Don't take it personally. Brittany is just very blunt, but she means well." After a year of dating, Michael arrived with the news. "Mom, Brittany and I are getting married." He hugged me tight. I hugged him back, feeling something in my chest tighten. But I smiled, because that's what mothers do. We smile even when our souls are breaking. The wedding was small. I paid $1,500 to help cover the cost of her dress. She never thanked me. She just said, "Oh, Martha, you really shouldn't have." "But I mean, since you insisted." I didn't insist. She hinted at it 3 times until I realized it was expected of me. And then came the proposal. The proposal that would change everything. 2 weeks after the honeymoon, Michael and Brittany came over for dinner. I made a baked ham with scalloped potatoes. It was Thanksgiving weekend. I wanted to celebrate their marriage with something special. Brittany barely touched it, said the dairy in the potatoes upset her stomach. After dinner, Michael took my hand. "Mom, we need to talk about something important." I sat down. My heart already knew bad news was coming. Brittany and I are saving up for our own house, but the real estate market in LA is insane right now. Condos in decent neighborhoods are going for over $1.5 million. And with my salary and the little she makes from her classes, well, it's going to take us years. Brittany interrupted him, her voice dripping with sugar. "What Michael is trying to say, Martha, is that this house is way too big for just you. It has 3 bedrooms. You only use 1. And we're paying $2,500 a month in rent for an awful, cramped apartment where we barely fit." Michael continued. "So we were thinking, what if we moved in here temporarily, just while we save up enough for a down payment? A year, maximum 2. I promise we won't be a burden, and that way you won't be lonely either. It's a win-win." I sat in silence, looking at my son, then at this woman I barely knew, and I made the biggest mistake of my life. I said yes. "Of course, son. This is your home. It's always been your home." Brittany smiled. This time, it did reach her eyes. But it wasn't a smile of gratitude. It was the smile of a victor. They moved in 3 days later, 2 suitcases, a garbage bag full of clothes, and a shoebox. That was it. They said the rest of their furniture from their apartment wasn't worth bringing. I offered them the master bedroom, the largest one with the ensuite bathroom. "No, Mom, that's your room. Don't worry about it, honey. I'll take the middle bedroom. After all, it's only temporary." Temporary. That word would haunt me for the next 2.5 years, because what started as a favor turned into a silent invasion. A hostile takeover so slow, so calculated, that by the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. Or so I thought at the time. Because what neither Brittany nor Michael knew is that this house had an owner, and that owner still had teeth. She was just waiting for the right moment to bite. The first 3 months were tolerable. Brittany behaved. Well, mostly. She made comments here and there, but nothing I couldn't brush off. Michael worked long hours at his accounting firm. Sometimes he left at 7 a.m. and didn't get back until 9 p.m. I cooked, I cleaned, I kept the house running like I always had. But something was shifting. Slowly, imperceptibly. It started small. One day, I came back from grocery shopping and found the living room redecorated. The embroidered throw pillows I had cross-stitched myself were in a trash bag by the door. In their place were minimalist, gray, geometric pillows that looked like concrete blocks. "Oh, Martha, I hope you don't mind. Those old pillows just made the room look so busy. I need spaces that can breathe, you know? For my mental health." I stood there holding the grocery bags, staring at my pillows in the trash. "Sure, sweetie, whatever you say." A week later, the framed photos on the walls started disappearing. First, my wedding picture with Henry, then Michael's middle school graduation photo, then the picture of my mother. "Brittany, have you seen the pictures that were in the hallway?" "Oh, yeah." "I put them in a box in the laundry room. There were just too many, Martha. It was making the walls look cluttered. Besides, nobody prints photos anymore. Everything is on the cloud now. We have to get with the times." The laundry room, my memories, boxed up like worthless junk. I said I understood, but I didn't. I didn't understand how someone could walk into a house that wasn't theirs and erase the history of the people who actually lived there. Then came the friends. Brittany started inviting 3 other women over every Thursday afternoon. They'd arrive with their designer tote bags, their loud, shrill laughs, and their expensive shoes that left scuff marks on my freshly mopped hardwood floors. They'd sit in my living room, drink the coffee I brewed, eat the pastries I bought, and treat me like I was invisible. Or worse, like I was the help. "Martha, can we get some more stevia?" "Martha, can you turn the volume down on the TV in the kitchen? We're discussing important business." "Martha, do you have any cloth napkins? These paper towels are kind of tacky." Brittany never corrected them. She laughed right along with them. Sometimes, when I walked past the living room, I'd catch fragments of their conversations. "So, is your mother-in-law ever going to move into a retirement community?" Girl, it's complicated. It's technically her house, right? But we'll see. All in due time. Her house." At least she admitted that much in front of her friends, even if the tone she used made it sound more like an annoyance than a fact. But the worst was yet to come. One Saturday, Brittany decided to do a deep clean. I had gone out to visit Ruth. When I got back, I found 3 heavy-duty black trash bags sitting on the back patio. "What is this, Brittany?" "Oh, Martha, I just started organizing and found so much old junk taking up space. Outdated clothes, scuffed shoes, old books nobody reads anymore. We have to let go of the past to make room for the future, right?" I ripped open one of the bags. Inside was the wool sweater Henry used to wear on Sundays, the one that still smelled faintly of his cologne. The poetry books I used to read when my insomnia flared up. The shoes I wore to Michael's high school graduation. "Brittany, these are my things." "Oh, Martha, come on. You never used them. They were just sitting in boxes collecting dust. I thought I was doing you a favor." A favor. She was stripping me of my history and calling it a favor. I pulled everything out of the bags and carried it to my bedroom. Brittany sighed dramatically behind me. "Well, fine. If you want to live like a hoarder, that's on you." That night, When Michael got home, I told him what happened. I expected him to get angry, to defend me, just for once. "Mom, Brittany's just trying to help keep the house tidy. You know she's a neat freak. Don't take it personally. Don't take it personally." That phrase became his default response for everything. But there was one thing I did take personally, something that shattered my heart in a way I didn't think was possible. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the kitchen making a pitcher of iced tea. I heard Brittany talking on the phone in the living room. Her voice was louder than usual. "No, Mom, it's not that simple. She's still here. Yes, I know. It's been 2 years. Michael says we can't just kick her out because she's his mother. But Mom, this house appraised at almost $1 million. If we sold it, we could buy something amazing in Pasadena or Silver Lake, and we'd still have cash left over." "What?" "No, she doesn't have anywhere to go. She has a sister in Ohio, but I doubt she'd want to move to the Midwest." "Well, she'll just have to deal with it. She's not really in a position to be making demands anymore." I froze, the pitcher of iced tea trembling in my hands. She wanted to sell my house, the house I built with my own sweat, and Michael knew about it, and he hadn't said a word. I didn't eat dinner that night. I locked myself in my bedroom. I cried silently, burying my face in my pillow so they wouldn't hear me. I felt like a stranger in my own home, like a burden, like an old appliance that needed to be hauled to the dump. And the absolute worst part was that Michael, my son, the boy I raised single-handedly, who I fed with money earned standing on my feet all weekend, who I dressed in decent clothes while I walked around with holes in my shoes, that same Michael was letting this happen. He wasn't defending his wife from my supposed hostility. He was defending his wife from my very existence. The following months were a slow descent into constant humiliation. Brittany stopped asking me for things. She started ordering me. "Martha, make breakfast. I have an early Zoom call. Martha, hand wash this silk blouse. The washing machine ruins it. Martha, can you just stay in your room when my girls come over? We talk about private stuff." I obeyed because I didn't know what else to do, because I was terrified of losing my son, because at 67, I felt so tired. And then came the vinyl collection. Henry used to collect vinyl records. Classic soul, Motown, Sinatra. We had 43 records. He kept them on a beautiful wooden shelf in the living room. To me, they were sacred. They were the only thing I had left of his voice singing along on Sunday mornings while we cooked breakfast. One day, I came home from the grocery store, and the shelf was completely empty. "Where are the records?" Brittany was painting her nails on the couch. "Oh, I tossed them. They took up way too much space, and nobody even owns a record player anymore, Martha. Plus, they smelled weird, like mildew." I felt the floor drop out from under me. "You threw them in the trash?" "Yeah. The garbage truck already came by, so they're gone. But relax, I put a fiddle leaf fig there instead. It looks way better, much fresher." I just stared at her. This woman had just thrown away the last fragments of my husband, the last echoes of his memory, and she had done it with the same indifference as throwing away a junk mail flyer. I didn't say anything. I didn't scream. I didn't cry in front of her. I walked to my bedroom, shut the door, sat on the edge of the bed, and wept until I had no tears left. That night, something inside me began to die. Not my spirit, not my strength, but my fear. Because when you have nothing left to lose, when they've already stripped you of everything you loved, when you've hit absolute rock bottom, there's only one option left. Stand back up. And I was about to stand up. I just didn't know it yet. I just needed one final push, one last humiliation to sever the final thread tying me to submission. And that push was coming. It arrived in the form of emergency surgery and a pile of damp cardboard boxes in the backyard. The pain started on a Tuesday night, a sharp, stabbing pain on my right side, right beneath my ribs. At first, I thought it was indigestion. Maybe something I ate didn't sit right. I drank some chamomile tea and went to bed early. But the pain didn't go away. It sat there, pulsing, growing like a monster waking up inside me. By 3 a.m., I woke up drenched in a cold sweat. The pain was unbearable. I was doubled over. I couldn't catch my breath. Every time I inhaled, it felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I dragged myself down the hallway to Michael and Brittany's bedroom door. I knocked softly. "Michael, Michael." Silence. I knocked harder. Michael, please. I feel really sick. I heard movement inside. Footsteps. The door cracked open just an inch. Brittany appeared, looking extremely annoyed, her hair messy, eyes puffy from sleep. What's going on, Martha? It's 3:0 inches the morning. And it hurts so much. Right here. I can't breathe. Ugh, Martha. It's probably just gas. Go take some Pepto-Bismol and go back to sleep. Michael has to be up early for work. Don't wake him up for this. And she shut the door. She literally shut the door in my face. While I was doubled over in agony, I stood there in the dark hallway, clutching my side, feeling the pain intensify. Tears streamed down my face, not just from the physical agony, but from something far worse, complete and utter isolation. I stumbled back to my room. I sat on the bed. The pain was so severe I started feeling dizzy, my vision blurred. I grabbed my cell phone with trembling hands and dialed the only number I knew would answer. Hello? Ruth. I'm so sorry to wake you up. Martha? What's wrong? You sound terrible. It hurts so much. I don't know what to do. I'm on my way. Don't move. 15 minutes later, Ruth was unlocking my front door. She's had a spare key for years. She rushed straight into my bedroom and found me curled in a fetal position, clutching my stomach. Oh my God, Martha. This isn't normal. I'm taking you to the ER right now. No, I don't want to be a bother. Stop talking nonsense. Let's go. She helped me get dressed. She supported my weight as we hobbled to her car. We walked right past Michael's bedroom. The door stayed shut. They didn't even come out to see what was happening. Ruth drove me to the emergency room at County General. The doctors rushed me through triage, blood work, ultrasounds. A young attending physician explained the situation with a grim face. Mrs. Villarreal, your gallbladder is severely inflamed. You have large gallstones, and one is blocking the bile duct. We need to operate immediately. If we wait, you're at risk of a severe infection, peritonitis, or sepsis. Sepsis. That word sounded like a death sentence. How much is the surgery going to cost? I asked. With your current Medicare plan and out-of-pocket maximums, you're looking at around $14,000 to $15,000, depending on complications. $14,500, almost everything I had left in my savings account. Go ahead, doctor. Do what you have to do. Ruth squeezed my hand. Do you want me to call Michael? I thought about that closed bedroom door, about Brittany telling me it was just gas, about 2.5 years of being a ghost in my own home. No. Let him sleep. They operated on me before the sun came up. It was a complicated surgery. There was internal bleeding. My gallbladder was in worse shape than they thought. I was in the operating room for 4 hours. When I finally woke up, it was late afternoon. Ruth was still there, sitting in the plastic chair next to my hospital bed, holding my hand. How do you feel? She asked. Like I got hit by an 18-wheeler. She smiled, but her eyes were red and watery. Martha, the doctor said it was close. If you had waited a few more hours. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Did you call Michael? Yes. I called him this morning. I told him you were in the hospital, that you had emergency surgery. He said he would come by as soon as he could, but that he had a very important meeting at the firm. A very important meeting. His mother almost died, and he had a meeting. Something inside me hardened in that moment, like hot steel being quenched in ice water. I see. Martha, It's fine, Ruth. I understand. Hours passed. The afternoon faded into night. Nurses came in and out. They asked if I needed anything, if my pain was managed, if I had called my family. They're on their way. I lied. Ruth stayed with me until 10 p.m. She had to go home because her husband was alone, and he had recently been discharged for heart issues himself. Don't worry. Go home. I'll be fine. I'll be back first thing in the morning. You really don't have to. I'll be back first thing in the morning, she repeated firmly. She kissed my forehead and left. I was left alone in that hospital room. The smell of bleach, the rhythmic beeping of the monitors, the harsh fluorescent lights, and nobody came. I cried that night. I cried like I hadn't cried in years. Not from the physical pain, the Dilaudid took care of that. I cried from a deep, aching pain in my soul, from feeling entirely disposable, from realizing that, to my own son, I was no longer a priority, I was an inconvenience. The next day, Michael finally showed up at 11 a.m. He was wearing his tailored office suit. He looked tired, stressed. "Mom, how are you?" "Alive, apparently. I'm sorry I didn't come sooner. Yesterday I had a meeting I absolutely couldn't cancel, and this morning I had to finalize a quarter-end report. But I'm here now." He sat in the chair next to my bed. He checked his phone twice in 5 minutes. "Was it serious?" "Yes, Michael, you almost lost me." He fell silent. He put his phone in his pocket. He looked at me, guilt flashing across his face. "I'm so sorry, Mom." "Where is Brittany?" "At home." "She wasn't feeling well. I think she caught a bug." "A bug?" "I almost died. And she had the sniffles." "I see. But she told me to give you a big hug from her." "A big hug? How generous." Michael stayed for another 20 minutes. We talked about trivial things. The weather, the traffic on the 405, how expensive gas was getting. We didn't talk about the things that actually mattered. We didn't talk about how I was ignored in the middle of the night, how his wife shut the door in my face, how I laid in the ER alone while he slept soundly. Before he left, he kissed my forehead. "Call me if you need anything." "Yes, I'll come by when I can." When I can. He never came back. I was in the hospital for 12 days. 12 days because I developed complications, a high fever, a post-op infection. The doctors had to switch my IV antibiotics 3 times. Ruth came every single day. She brought me soup in a thermos. She brushed my hair. She read the LA Times to me out loud. She walked with me down the sterile hallways when the nurses finally let me out of bed. Michael sent text messages. "Hey, Mom, how are you feeling? Hope you get better soon. Sending love." Texts. No phone calls. No visits. Just empty words on an iPhone screen. Brittany sent nothing. The nurses asked me constantly, "Mrs. Villarreal, is your family coming today?" "They're just very busy." "Do you have kids?" "One. A son." "And he can't make it down here?" "He works long hours. He's a CPA." The nurses exchanged glances. I knew exactly what they were thinking. The exact same thing I was thinking. On the day I was discharged, I called Michael. "Michael, the doctor cleared me to go home. Can you come pick me up?" "Oh, man, Mom, I have a massive presentation with a client at 3 today. I can't leave the office. Can you just grab an Uber?" An Uber. After major abdominal surgery, after 12 days alone in a hospital bed, after staring death in the face. An Uber. "Sure, Michael, don't worry about it." "Awesome. I'll see you at home tonight then. Take it easy, Mom." And he hung up. I ordered an Uber Black because I needed a comfortable car. I paid $45. The driver, a kind man, helped me load my small overnight bag into the trunk. He asked if I was okay. I told him yes, that I had just been discharged from surgery. "And nobody came to pick you up?" "My family is tied up at work." He looked at me through the rearview mirror with genuine pity. "Times have changed, ma'am. Family used to be sacred." "Yes," I replied softly. "Times have changed." But what that driver didn't know, what nobody knew yet, was that I was about to change, too. Because there comes a moment in every person's life where you have to decide, do I keep playing the victim, or do I turn into something else? I had played the victim for long enough. When that Uber pulled up to my house, when I stepped out onto the pavement with the pain still radiating from my abdomen, when I walked toward the front door of the house I had paid for in blood, sweat, and tears, something new was born inside me. It wasn't rage. Rage runs hot and burns out fast. It was something cold, calculated, and absolute. It was the unwavering certainty that I deserved better, and I was ready to take it back. The Uber drove off. I stood in front of the green gate, the same gate I had sanded and painted 5 years ago. The midday California sun beat down on my back. The small overnight bag felt heavy in my hand. The surgical glue under my shirt pulled tight with every breath. I pushed the gate open slowly. The hinges squeaked louder than usual, or maybe it was just that my senses were hyper-alert after coming so close to dying. I walked up the front walkway. The flower beds I used to tend meticulously were bone dry. Nobody had watered them. The rose bush I planted in Henry's memory was wilting, its petals dropping into the dirt like brown tears. I unlocked the front door. The house was dead silent, that eerie silence of a place that used to belong to you, but doesn't recognize you anymore. "Michael? Brittany?" Nobody answered. I left my bag by the front door. I walked slowly down the hallway. Every step was a chore. The doctors had strictly told me, no sudden movements, no heavy lifting, rest. But something primal pushed me forward. The living room was immaculate, too immaculate. The gray pillows perfectly fluffed. The fake plant standing exactly where Henry's records used to be. Everything was staged, cold, totally devoid of soul. I kept walking. I passed the kitchen. A pile of crusted breakfast dishes sat in the sink. The smell of burnt coffee hung in the air. And then I reached my bedroom. The door was cracked open. I pushed it with my fingertips. It swung open slowly, like a scene in a horror movie, and what I saw knocked the wind out of me. Empty. The room was totally gutted. My mattress, gone. The bed frame I slept on for 20 years, gone. The oak wardrobe from the flea market, the nightstand where I kept my rosary, the vintage lamp Michael bought me for my 60th birthday, the woven rug I bought on a trip to New Mexico, gone. The walls were bare. The only things left were the faded rectangular outlines where my framed photos used to hang, ghostly silhouettes of a life that used to exist. My heart began to race, too fast. A wave of dizziness hit me. I leaned against the doorframe to steady myself. Where was my stuff? I walked faster than I should have. My incision throbbed in protest, but I didn't care. I crossed the living room, walked through the dining room, and opened the sliding glass door to the backyard. And there it was. All of my worldly possessions, shoved into 6 large Home Depot moving boxes. Some of the boxes were soggy from the morning dew. Others had crushed corners, like they had been dragged across the concrete without a second thought. I walked toward them, my legs trembling. I opened the top flaps of the first box. My clothes, my entire wardrobe, violently shoved inside without being folded. The nice dresses I wore to Sunday Mass. The comfortable blouses I wore to the grocery store. Underwear, socks, sweaters, mixed together like trash. I opened the second box. My shoes. The orthopedic sneakers I wore every day. The low heels I kept for special occasions. Scuffed, dirty, some developing mold on the soles from sitting outside in the damp air. The third box. My bedsheets, my towels, the heavy Afghan blankets I had crocheted by hand over years of lonely winters. The fourth box. My books, the poetry I read when I couldn't sleep, the family Bible my mother gave me on her deathbed, the weathered recipe binder where I had written down all of Michael's favorite meals when he was growing up. The fifth box, photographs. Hundreds of loose photos, ripped from their albums, completely unprotected, warped by the humidity. The picture of my wedding day with Henry, Michael's high school graduation. My parents. 30 years of family history warping and curling under the California sun. And the sixth box, my mother's rosary, Henry's wool sweater that I refused to throw away, the handwritten letters Michael mailed me from Boy Scout camp when he was 13. I miss you, Mom. You're the best mom in the world. You're the best mom in the world. I dropped to my knees on the concrete. The physical pain in my stomach was absolutely nothing compared to the agony in my chest. A black hole was opening up inside me, threatening to swallow me whole. My entire existence had been reduced to 6 soggy cardboard boxes on a patio, like garbage, like an eyesore, like something meant to be thrown away. I didn't cry. I don't know why, but the tears just wouldn't come. Maybe I was completely out of tears. Maybe I had cried so much in that hospital bed that my body decided it was done. I just knelt there, staring at the boxes, feeling everything I was turn to dust. And then I heard her. Footsteps behind me, heels clicking against the patio concrete. "Oh, mother-in-law, you're back." I turned around slowly. Brittany was standing in the doorway. She was wearing a pale pink silk robe. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a flawless claw clip. Her nails had a fresh French manicure. In her right hand, she was holding a silver handheld mirror, my mirror, the one Henry gave me. She was applying her mascara as if it were just another Tuesday. As if I wasn't kneeling in front of the wreckage of my life. She looked at me for a fraction of a second. Her eyes glossed over me with the exact same indifference you'd give a rusted lawnmower. "I figured you weren't coming back, so I cleaned out your closet." Her voice was so breezy, so light, like she was mentioning that the mail arrived. I pushed myself up to my feet. A sharp pain ripped through my abdomen. I winced, but I didn't make a sound. I leaned a hand on one of the boxes to keep from collapsing. "You cleaned out my closet?" Yeah. We needed the space for my beauty studio. You know, since I'm transitioning to working full-time from home, I'm going to start doing online makeup tutorials, and I needed a quiet room with good natural lighting. Your room is perfect. It has that big bay window. She kept applying her mascara. She wasn't looking at me. She didn't even have the basic human decency to look me in the eye. These are my things, Brittany. Ugh, Martha. Don't be so dramatic. It's all right there. I didn't throw anything away. Well, maybe some old junk that was literally falling apart, but the important stuff is right there in the boxes. The important stuff. I looked down at the water-damaged photos, the ruined Bible, Henry's sweater. These things are wet. They're ruined. Well, I put them out here 2 days ago. You weren't coming home, and I wasn't going to drag them all back inside. Plus, it rained a little last night. That's not my fault. 2 days ago. I had been fighting for my life in a hospital bed for 10 days, and she was dragging my belongings out into the yard. Does Michael know about this? Brittany stopped doing her makeup. She lowered the mirror and looked me dead in the eye for the first time. There was something glinting in her gaze. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't shame. It was smug satisfaction. Of course he knows. He gave me the green light. He said if you didn't make it back, there was no point in keeping all this junk around. And if you did come back, well, we could talk about alternative living arrangements. But you know how Michael is. He hates confrontation. He prefers to just let things happen naturally. Let things happen naturally. My son knew she was going to evict me from my own bedroom, and he did nothing. He didn't call me. He didn't stop her. I felt a strange sensation wash over me. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't blinding rage. It was absolute clarity, like a filthy window shattering, leaving the view crystal clear. I looked at this woman standing in front of me, holding my mirror, living in my house, taking over my bedroom, tossing my memories aside like trash. And I understood one fundamental truth. This was never going to stop. She was never going to change. Michael was never going to stand up for me. If I didn't do something right now, I was going to end up living in a tiny closet in my own home, or worse, out on the street, because that's what she wanted. She wanted me to leave, to disappear, to stop existing. And then I did something that caught her completely off guard. I smiled. It wasn't a sweet, grandmotherly smile. It wasn't a smile of resignation. It was a cold, calculated, predatory smile. That's great. Brittany stopped dead. She looked at me, genuinely confused. What? I said, that's great, you cleaned out my closet, sweetie, because now I'm the one who's going to clean house. Excuse me? I took a slow step toward her, holding my stomach, but keeping my eyes locked onto hers. And I'm starting with you. The mascara wand slipped from her fingers and hit the concrete with a sharp clack. All the color drained from her face. All of that smug arrogance, that breezy indifference she had just 10 seconds ago, completely vanished. She went pale, as if she had looked into my eyes and seen something she never thought possible, pure danger. Because maybe, for the first time in 2.5 years, Brittany realized a very important fact. This house had a master, and the master had just woken up. Pick up my things and take them into the living room, every single box, right now. What? No, I'm not lifting heavy. Right now, Brittany. My voice wasn't loud. I wasn't screaming. But there was a frequency in my tone that rooted her to the spot, a tone that communicated that the game was over, that the submissive, invisible pushover who swallowed every insult with a smile, that woman had died at County General. The woman standing in front of her had absolutely nothing left to lose, and that made me dangerous. Brittany swallowed hard. She looked at the boxes. She looked at me, and for the very first time since I met her, she broke eye contact and looked at the ground. Fine. I'll carry them. Good. Start walking. She bent down. She picked up a box, struggling with the weight, her pristine French manicure sinking into the damp, dirty cardboard. I watched her carry the heavy box inside, carrying my memories, my life, and I just stood there on the patio under the California sun, feeling my spine turn to titanium. Because now came the hard part. Now came the war. I wasn't going to fight with screaming matches or tears. I was going to fight with the ultimate weapon, the law. And the law stated that this house was mine. The deed was in my name alone. I paid for every piece of drywall, every shingle on the roof. And nobody was going to take it from me. Brittany finished hauling the boxes into the living room. She stacked them near the couch, treating them like a temporary nuisance. Her hands were dirty, her perfect hair slightly frizzy from the exertion. She kept shooting me sideways glances, waiting for me to say something else, waiting for the explosion, waiting for me to yell and make a scene. But I didn't say a word. I just watched her. And in that heavy silence, she knew the power dynamic had violently shifted. She wiped her hands on her silk robe, leaving dirty streaks across the fabric, and frowned at the stains as if they were the biggest tragedy in the world. "Can I go now?" The way she phrased it, asking for permission, made her hesitate. She stood there, shifting uncomfortably, unsure of what to do. Finally, she spun around and marched back to the master bedroom. My bedroom, the one she had converted into her studio. I was left alone in the living room with my boxes. I sat carefully on the couch. The surgical site in my abdomen throbbed, a sharp reminder that my body was still weak, that I should be in bed recovering. But I couldn't rest. Not yet. I pulled my cell phone from my purse. My hands were shaky, just a little. I dialed Michael's number. It rang 5 times before he picked up. "Hey, Mom. You make it home okay? Everything good?" His voice was distracted. I could hear office chatter in the background. He was probably sitting at his desk, staring at a spreadsheet. "I need you to come home. Right now. Mom, I'm literally in the middle of a massive audit. Can it wait until tonight?" "No. It cannot wait." Silence on the line. Maybe he heard the icy edge in my voice, a tone he had never heard from me before. Did something happen? I got home from the hospital, after almost dying, and found my entire life boxed up and thrown in the backyard. In the dirt. Wet. A much longer pause. "Oh. Right, that. Look, Mom, Brittany mentioned she really needed the master bedroom for her influencer business. I told her to wait until you got back so we could all sit down and talk about it, but, well, you know how she is. Sometimes she jumps the gun, as if throwing someone's entire existence onto the patio was just being a little overeager. Michael, I just came from the hospital. I almost died on that operating table, and I come home to find my life treated like garbage. Mom, don't be so dramatic. It's just in boxes. She didn't throw it in the dumpster. We can set up a nice space for you in the guest room. It'll be fine." The guest room. "Michael, this is my house." "Yeah, I know it's your house, Mom. Nobody is disputing that." "Then come home right now. The 3 of us are going to have a conversation." He let out a heavy sigh. That specific, exasperated sigh he used when I was bothering him with my trivial problems. "Fine. Look, I can leave in an hour. I'll be home by 7 p.m. Can you just hold tight until then?" I looked at the wall clock. It was 2:30 p.m. "Yes. I can wait." "Great. We'll hash it out tonight. Take it easy, Mom." And he hung up. "Take it easy, Mom." As if it were that simple. I put my phone on the coffee table. I sat there staring at my cardboard boxes, running through every memory, every conversation, every interaction of the last 2.5 years. And in the quiet of that afternoon, I made my battle plan. I was not going to react emotionally. I wasn't going to cry, or yell, or beg for my son's love. That version of Martha was dead. I had tried playing the understanding mother, the accommodating mother-in-law, the woman who shrinks herself down so she doesn't take up too much space. And where did it get me? On my knees, in the dirt, looking at my ruined belongings. No. This time, I was going to play the game, but I was going to write the rules. I stood up carefully. I walked over to my purse and pulled out a small notepad, the one I used to use to write down grocery lists. I found a pen, and I started writing. I made a list. A master list of everything I knew, everything I had seen, everything I had heard. I wrote down the credit card statements I had dug out of the recycling bin 3 months ago. Brittany had been opening my mail and using my emergency credit card without my permission. $6,200 in unauthorized charges. Nordstrom hauls, designer shoes, luxury med spa treatments. I wrote down the conversations I had overheard. That time she was on the phone with her mother talking about selling the house. The texts on Michael's phone that I saw pop up one night when he left his phone on the kitchen counter. "Your mom has lived here long enough. We need our own space. Tell her it's time." I wrote down the real estate agent, The woman with the clipboard I saw walking through the house 2 weeks ago when Brittany thought I was at the grocery store. I had heard fragments of their conversation. This lot size in LA? You could easily list for $1.2 million, maybe $1.3. Cash offers. I documented everything. Dates, names, dollar amounts. And then I did something I had never done before. I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. I called Sean Miller. I knew Sean years ago, back when I was selling baked goods at the Pasadena Farmers Market. He was a broke law student at UCLA. Whenever I saw him counting his quarters just to afford a coffee, I'd slide him an extra muffin or a breakfast sandwich for free. He used to tell me, "Mrs. Villarreal, one day I'm going to pay you back for all this." I hadn't kept in touch, but 6 months ago, I saw his picture in a local business magazine. He was now a highly successful attorney specializing in family law and estate planning, running his own firm in Century City. I looked up the number for Miller and Associates on my phone. I dialed, my heart pounding against my ribs. "Miller and Associates, how can I direct your call?" "Good afternoon. I'm trying to reach Mr. Sean Miller, please." "May I ask who is calling?" "Martha. Martha Villarreal. Tell him it's the pie lady from the Pasadena market." There was a pause. Then hold music. Then, a familiar voice. "Mrs. Villarreal? Sean. Mr. Miller. I'm sorry to bother you." "Martha, please, to you I will always be Sean. How are you? It's been years. I need your help, son." "Legal help." His tone shifted instantly. Warm, but professional. "Tell me what's going on." And I told him everything. I laid it all out. From the day Brittany moved in, to the boxes on the damp patio, from the unauthorized credit card charges, to the real estate agent walking through my hallways. He listened in absolute silence. He didn't interrupt once. When I finally finished, he took a deep breath. "Martha, what you're describing constitutes elder financial abuse, unauthorized use of credit, and attempted real estate fraud. Do you have the physical deed to the house?" "Yes. It's in a small fireproof safe in my closet, or at least it was. I don't know if it's still there." "Check right now. If it's there, secure it immediately. Keep it somewhere only you have access to. Is the house deeded exclusively in your name?" "Only my name. Paid off in full." "Perfect. That gives us massive leverage. Do you have the credit card statements showing the fraud?" "I saved the ones I dug out of the trash." "Excellent. Now, I need you to do one more thing for me. Do you know how to use the voice memo app on your iPhone? Use it. If Brittany or Michael say anything incriminating about the house, about selling it, about kicking you out, hit record. California is a 2-party consent state for private calls, but recording someone openly in your own living room or catching them making threats in common areas can give us immense negotiating power. Martha, I'm going to be very direct with you. If you want to take your house and your life back, you have to be willing to go nuclear. This is going to get ugly. Your son is going to have to pick a side. He already picked a side, Sean, a long time ago. Are you ready for this then? I looked at the soggy cardboard boxes. I looked at the walls of the house I spent 4 years building. I thought of Henry. I thought of my bleeding knees, the midnight shifts buffing floors in downtown LA, the early mornings baking in a hot kitchen. I'm ready. Good. I'm coming to your house tomorrow. I'll bring the necessary paperwork. Until then, act totally normal. Do not let them know you're planning anything. Can you do that? Watch me. One last thing, Martha. We should contact Brittany's mother. Often, parents have no idea how their adult children are behaving behind closed doors. If she's a decent woman, we might just gain a very powerful ally. Brittany's mother. Susan Davis. I hadn't thought about her. I only really knew her from the wedding, a serious, tired-looking woman from a working-class suburb. I remembered her apologizing to me at the reception because she couldn't afford to contribute much to the wedding fund. I think I have her phone number saved somewhere. Find it. We're going to need it. Thank you, Sean. You don't know what this means to me. You fed me when I had nothing, Martha. You treated me with dignity when I was just a broke kid. It's time for me to return the favor. Don't thank me. Just get ready. Because the next few days are going to be brutal. We hung up. I sat there feeling an emotion I hadn't felt in a very, very long time. Hope. No, it wasn't just hope. It was power. It was the undeniable certainty that I was not alone, that the law was on my side, and that this was a war I could win. I stood up and marched straight to the master bedroom. Brittany's studio. I opened the door without knocking. She was standing at a new vanity mirror, arranging rows of expensive nail polish. She spun around, startled. "What are you doing in here?" "I came to get something that belongs to me." I walked straight to the walk-in closet. I pushed past her designer clothes. My fireproof safe was still on the floor, hidden under an old blanket. I pulled it out. "What is that?" Brittany demanded. "Nothing that concerns you." I punched in the combination. The heavy lid popped open. Inside were my most crucial documents: the original deed to the house, my passport, my birth certificate, and the last will and testament I had drawn up years ago, leaving everything to Michael. I grabbed the deed, folded it, and shoved it deep into my purse. Brittany was watching me with narrow, suspicious eyes. "Why are you taking that?" "For security." "Security from who?" I looked her dead in the eye. "Whoever I need security from." I walked out of the room, leaving her standing there with a bottle of Essie nail polish in her hand, looking thoroughly unsettled. I went back to the living room, double-checked that the deed was secure in my bag, and I waited. The next few hours felt like an eternity. I sat on the couch. I didn't eat. I didn't turn on the television. I just waited. Brittany came out of the bedroom a couple of times to get water. She kept looking at me out of the corner of her eye. I just smiled at her. A calm, serene smile that clearly made her skin crawl, because I was acting differently and she could feel the shift in the atmosphere. At 7:15 p.m., I heard Michael's Tesla pull into the driveway. The front door unlocked. He walked in, carrying his leather briefcase, looking exhausted. "Hey, Mom, I'm home." "Okay, let's talk about what happened." He sat down on the accent chair across from me. Brittany emerged from the hallway and stood right behind his chair, crossing her arms defensively. And there we were, the three of us, like a dysfunctional family staging a terrible play. I looked at both of them, and I smiled. That exact smile that changed the trajectory of all our lives, because in that moment, they still thought I was the exact same woman. The punching bag, the pushover, the one who absorbed abuse to keep the peace. They had no idea that woman was gone, and the woman sitting across from them was completely fearless and ready to detonate their lives. "Sit down, Brittany," I said, my voice eerily calm. "This is going to take a minute." And I started talking. I didn't play all my cards that night. I didn't tell them everything I knew. Because that's the difference between reacting emotionally and acting with strategy. Emotion screams. Strategy waits. I told them enough. I told them I felt deeply disrespected finding my belongings rotting in the backyard. I told them I needed a clean, safe space to recover from major surgery. I told them I expected basic human decency from both of them. Michael immediately shifted into damage control. He apologized profusely. He said it was a huge miscommunication, that Brittany had just gotten a little ahead of herself but had the best intentions. Brittany just nodded tightly. She didn't apologize. She just said, "I didn't mean to offend you, Martha." But her eyes told a completely different story. Her eyes said, "This isn't over." She was right. It wasn't over. It was just getting started. I told them I would move into the smallest bedroom, the cramped, drafty room at the back of the house I used to use for sewing. "I'll be fine in there," I said. "I just need my bed and my essentials." Michael looked visibly relieved, like he had just dodged a bullet, and a simple room swap solved the whole crisis. "I'll help you move the bed in tomorrow, Mom." "No need. I'll handle it." That night, after they retreated to the master suite and shut their door, I lay awake in the cramped back room. I had reassembled my bed frame as best as my stitches allowed. I pulled my damp blankets from the cardboard boxes. And then I did what had to be done. I took out my phone. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the number. Susan Davis, Brittany's mother. It was 11 p.m. Much too late to be calling an older woman, but my gut told me I had to do it right then, before my nerve failed me. I hit dial. It rang 4 times. "Hello?" A groggy, gravelly voice. "Susan?" "Yes." "Who is this?" "It's Martha." Martha Villarreal, Brittany's mother-in-law. A shocked silence hung on the line. "Martha? Oh my goodness. Is everything okay? It's so late." I'm so sorry to call at this hour, Susan, but I need to speak with you. It's incredibly important. Did something happen to Brittany? Is she hurt? No. Well, yes, but it's complicated. Can we meet tomorrow? Somewhere neutral? A coffee shop? Another long pause. Does Brittany know you're calling me? I heard her take a deep breath. Her voice lost its grogginess and became razor sharp. Listen to me, Martha. I know my daughter. I know how she operates. If you're calling me behind her back in the middle of the night, something very bad is happening. Tell me where and when. I'll be there. I gave her the address of a diner about 10 blocks from my house. We agreed to meet at 11 a.m. When I hung up, I felt a surge of adrenaline. I had taken the first real step. I was building an airtight case. I was setting the trap. I barely slept that night. The mattress felt stiff. The room was freezing. But it wasn't the cold keeping me awake. It was the anticipation. For the first time in years, I was holding the steering wheel of my own life. The next morning, I woke up early. I brewed coffee. I made a full breakfast, scrambled eggs, bacon, toast, just like always. Michael rushed out the door at 7:30, giving me a quick peck on the cheek. Thanks for breakfast, Mom. You're looking better. I feel much better, Michael. Brittany emerged half an hour later. She ignored the eggs and blended herself some sort of expensive green detox smoothie. She watched me out of the corner of her eye while she drank it. Are you going somewhere today, Martha? Yes, I have a post-op appointment with my surgeon. Oh, well, have fun. A lie. I didn't have an appointment, but she didn't need to know that. At 10:30 a.m., I walked out the front door. I walked slowly. My incision was aching, but the physical movement felt good. The California sun warmed my shoulders. With every step, I felt like I was walking out of a fog and into the light. I arrived at the diner 5 minutes early. I ordered a black coffee and sat in a booth in the very back, facing the door. At exactly 11 a.m., Susan walked in. I recognized her immediately. She had the same sharp jawline as Brittany, but her hair was a sensible graying blonde. She was wearing well-worn jeans, comfortable walking shoes, and a faded cardigan. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman who had worked hard her entire life, nothing like the glitzy facade her daughter projected. She spotted me and slid into the booth opposite me. We exchanged a tense, awkward hug. She ordered a black tea. "All right, Martha," she said, folding her hands on the Formica table. "Tell me what the hell is going on." And I told her everything. I laid it all out. The boxes in the yard, the $6,200 of unauthorized credit card debt, the blueprints to sell my house and pocket the cash. The fact that she shut the door in my face when I was having a medical emergency, 2.5 years of relentless, psychological bullying disguised as helping out. Susan sat there like a statue. As I spoke, her face grew darker. Sometimes she shook her head in disbelief. Sometimes her lips pressed into a thin, white line. When I finished, the diner was buzzing with the lunchtime rush, but our booth felt like a vacuum. Susan stared at her tea. She didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she looked up at me, and her eyes were brimming with tears. "Martha, I owe you a massive apology." "For what?" "Because I raised that girl. And somewhere along the line, I failed. I don't know where, and I don't know how, but I failed miserably." Her voice trembled, thick with shame. Brittany was always ambitious. Since she was a teenager, she always wanted the things we couldn't afford. She was embarrassed that I cleaned houses for a living. She hated that we lived in a rundown duplex in Reseda. When she got old enough to work, she refused to do anything that wasn't glamorous. She always wanted the shortcut. She grabbed a paper napkin and dabbed her eyes. I warned her, Martha. Before the wedding, I sat her down and I said, "You respect your mother-in-law? That woman scrubbed floors and sold food on the street to give her son a life. Do not ever look down on her." And you know what Brittany said to me? She rolled her eyes and said, "Ugh, Mom, stop being so dramatic. I know how to handle people." Susan let out a bitter laugh. "And now I sit here and find out my daughter tossed your life onto a dirty patio, that she's stealing from your credit cards, that she's trying to steal your home. Martha, I did not raise a thief. I didn't raise someone who abuses the elderly. But that's exactly what my daughter is. And it kills me to say it. But it's the truth." I reached across the table and took her hands. They were freezing cold. "It's not your fault, Susan. Yes, it is. I enabled her. I bailed her out when she maxed out her first credit card. I never forced her to face the consequences of her actions. I never taught her gratitude. We sat in silence for a moment, the clatter of silverware and diner chatter washing over us. "What are you going to do?" Susan asked, her voice steadying. "I'm taking my house back. And my dignity." I told her about Sean Miller. I told her about the evidence I had secured, the financial records, the voice memos. "I need your help, Susan. When the time comes, I need you to be in that room. I need your daughter to look you in the eye and know that you know exactly who she really is. Sometimes, the shame of a mother's disappointment is far worse than any legal threat." Susan nodded, her jaw set like stone. "Tell me the time and place. I'll be there. I promise you." We parted ways outside the diner. She hugged me tight, a real, grounding hug. I walked home, feeling like my armor was finally complete. I had my lawyer. I had my evidence. And now, I had my star witness. When I walked through the front door, Brittany was sprawled on the couch scrolling through TikTok. "How was the doctor?" she asked without looking up. "Healing perfectly." I walked straight to my tiny back room, shut the door, and took out my phone. I hit record on the voice memo app and slipped the phone into my cardigan pocket. From now on, I was a walking wire. Every interaction was going to be logged. The next few days were an elaborate dance. I played the role of the docile old woman flawlessly. I cooked, I cleaned, I stayed out of their way. But behind the scenes, I was meticulously hunting for the final nails for their coffin. I realized Brittany was lying to her mother, too. I overheard her on the phone in the hallway. "Yeah, Mom, everything's great. Michael is doing so well at the firm." "Oh, Martha?" "Yeah, she's recovering. We're taking really good care of her. I even moved her into the downstairs room so she doesn't have to deal with the stairs. I know, I'm exhausted, but I'm just trying to be a supportive wife." I recorded the whole thing. The sheer audacity was breathtaking. One afternoon, while Brittany was out at her Pilates class, I went into the master bedroom. I shouldn't have been snooping, but the rules of polite society no longer applied. I opened the desk drawer she had claimed as her office space. Bingo. Buried under a stack of Vogue magazines were the original copies of my stolen credit card bills. $6,200. I took crystal clear photos of every single page. But I found something else. A glossy folder from a luxury real estate brokerage in Beverly Hills. Inside was a printed comparative market analysis of my house. Estimated value, $1,250,000. Attached to the appraisal was a sticky note with Brittany's handwriting. 1,2 mensale. Realtor fee, 5% $60K. Et comma et fire M. Put $800K down on Pasadena condo. Invest the rest. She was literally doing the math on stealing my generational wealth. I took photos of everything and put it back exactly as I found it. The next night, Sean Miller came over. He arrived at 6 p.m., an hour before Michael usually got off work. When I opened the door, I acted incredibly surprised. "Sean! Oh my goodness, what a surprise! Mrs. Villarreal! I was just driving through the valley and realized I hadn't seen you in over a decade. I had to stop and say hello." Brittany poked her head out of the kitchen. "Who is it?" "An old friend," I said. "Brittany, this is Sean. Sean, my daughter-in-law." Sean extended his hand with a killer, $1,000,000 smile. "Nice to meet you. Sean Miller, attorney at law. Martha used to keep me from starving back when I was a broke law student." The word attorney hit Brittany like a physical blow. Her eyes darted to his expensive suit, his Rolex, his leather briefcase. "Oh, nice to meet you," she managed to squeak out. "Do you mind if I come in for 10 minutes? I'd love to catch up with Martha." "Of course, come sit in the living room," I said. Brittany excused herself to the bedroom, but I knew she was standing just behind the door, listening to every word. Sean and I sat on the couch and had a totally normal, mundane conversation about my health and his law firm. But in my pocket, my phone was recording. Before he left, Sean smoothly handed me a thick manila envelope. "Just a little token of my appreciation, Martha. For the old times. Thank you, Sean." "You're too kind." As soon as the front door clicked shut behind him, Brittany materialized from the hallway. "Who was that again?" she asked, her voice tight. "Just an old friend. He became a lawyer. Can you believe it? What did he want? I looked at her, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make her sweat. Why? Are you worried about something? No, just curious. But the sheer panic in her eyes told me everything. She knew the walls were closing in. That night in my room, I opened Sean's envelope. Inside were drafted legal complaints, civil suits for fraud, eviction notices, and a handwritten note. Martha, you have all the leverage. When you're ready, we drop the hammer. Trust me and trust yourself. Sean. I hid the documents under my mattress inside an old medical file, and I waited. Because revenge is a dish best served with absolute, airtight legal backing. The climax arrived exactly when Sean orchestrated it. We have enough, Sean told me over the phone on a Thursday. It's time to spring the trap. We're going to hold a family meeting this Saturday at 4 p.m. You, Michael, Brittany, Susan, and me. Will Michael actually sit down for it? Tell him you're updating your last will and testament and he needs to be present to sign paperwork. He'll show up. Trust me, greed always shows up. He was right. When I told Michael on Friday night that my lawyer was coming over to formalize my estate planning and that I needed him and Brittany in the living room at 4 p.m. the next day, his eyes lit up. He tried to hide it, but I saw the flash of dollar signs in his head. He thought I was signing the house over to him. Of course, Mom. We'll be there. Saturday arrived. I woke up, showered, and put on my favorite outfit. A beautiful, royal blue blouse Henry had bought me for our anniversary, tailored slacks, and a touch of red lipstick. I wanted to look exactly like who I was, the undisputed matriarch of this family. At 3:30 p.m., Sean pulled up in his Mercedes. He walked in carrying a heavy leather briefcase. Ready, Martha? I've never been more ready for anything in my life. At 3:45 p.m., Susan arrived. I had asked her to come early so I could brace her. She looked exhausted, but her eyes were steeled with resolve. At exactly 4 p.m., Michael and Brittany walked out of their bedroom. They froze in their tracks. Michael looked at Sean, then he looked at Susan sitting stiffly in the armchair. Mom? What's going on? Mrs. Davis, what are you doing here? Brittany went dead pale. Mom? Did someone die? Sit down, I commanded. My voice left zero room for argument. They sat on the love seat, clutching each other like hostages. Sean remained standing next to me. Susan sat opposite them, her hands locked together in her lap. The silence in the room was so heavy it felt hard to breathe. The only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock. Thank you all for being here, Sean began, his voice booming with courtroom authority. My name is Sean Miller. I am an attorney specializing in estate law and civil litigation. Martha has retained my firm to resolve a situation that has become legally and morally untenable. Brittany squeezed Michael's hand. Michael swallowed hard. What situation? I stood up. The situation where the two of you are trying to steal my house and my life savings. Michael gasped. What? Mom, are you crazy? Nobody is trying to steal anything. Oh, really? Sean unclasped his briefcase. He pulled out a stack of 8x 10-color prints and tossed them onto the glass coffee table like a dealer dealing blackjack. Smack. The credit card statements highlighting the $6,200 in spa treatments and designer shoes. Smack. The real estate appraisal valuing the house at $1.25 million. Smack. Brittany's handwritten sticky note calculating how to divide the profits from selling my home. Smack. The transcript of the voice recordings. Brittany stopped breathing. I physically watched her soul leave her body. Michael leaned forward with trembling hands. He picked up the credit card bills. He picked up the sticky note. He read them. And as his eyes scanned the papers, his face morphed from confusion to shock to sheer, unadulterated horror. Brittany, he whispered. What is this? She was entirely mute. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. You racked up $6,000 on my mother's credit card? Michael yelled. Silence. You got a real estate agent to appraise the house behind my back? Susan finally spoke. Her voice cut through the room like a frozen blade. Look at me, Brittany. Brittany slowly turned her head. Tears were streaming down her face. Mom, it's not what it looks like. Shut your mouth, Susan snapped. Do not say a word, because nothing you say can justify this. Susan picked up the transcript of the voice memo. She read it out loud, her voice shaking with rage. She's not really in a position to be making demands. We can list the house for $1.2 million. Susan dropped the paper in disgust. You said that about the woman who opened her home to you, who cooked for you, who paid for your wedding dress. I am looking at you right now, Brittany. And I am looking at a monster. A greedy, entitled thief. Brittany began to sob hysterically, burying her face in her hands. But they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of a cornered animal realizing she had been caught. Michael dropped the papers on the table. He looked at me, his eyes red and pleading. Mom. Mom. I swear to God. I didn't know about the credit cards. I didn't know she brought a realtor in here. I knew she casually mentioned moving, but I thought it was just a pipe dream. I didn't know. And the boxes in the backyard, Michael? I asked softly. Did you know about those? He froze. Answer me, Michael. Did you know she was dragging my entire life into the dirt while I was hooked up to an IV drip fighting for my life? She told me she was just moving your stuff to the guest room. She said she wanted to surprise you with a fresh coat of paint. Liar! Brittany suddenly shrieked, dropping her hands from her face and glaring at her husband. Do not play the victim right now, Michael. You knew exactly what I was doing. You agreed we needed her out of that room. It was like watching a bomb detonate in slow motion. The united front collapsed. They were turning on each other to save themselves. Sean clapped his hands together loudly, immediately silencing the room. All right, let's look at the legal realities here, Sean said coolly. Mr. Villarreal, Mrs. Villarreal. First, unauthorized use of a credit card exceeding $950 is grand theft in the state of California. That is a felony. Second, attempting to broker the sale of a property you do not own constitutes real estate fraud. Third, doing all of this to a 7-year-old woman triggers elder financial abuse enhancements, which carry mandatory minimum prison sentences and treble damages. Brittany stopped sobbing. She sat frozen, staring at Sean in absolute terror. However, Sean continued, Martha is a remarkably gracious woman. She does not wish to see her son caught up in a criminal indictment. So, she has authorized me to offer you an ultimatum. Michael looked at me, desperate. What is it, Mom? Anything. I stepped forward. I looked down at the woman who had made my life a living hell for over 2 years. Here is your option, Brittany. You are going to stay in this house for exactly 30 more days. Not 1 day more, not 1 day less. During those 30 days, you are going to cook, you are going to mop the floors, you are going to do the laundry, and you are going to clean the toilets. Exactly like I did for the last 2.5 years while you treated me like a peasant. Furthermore, you will pay me $1,500 in rent for this month, and you will sign a legally binding, notarized promissory note to repay the $6,200 you stole from me at a rate of $500 a month. I leaned in closer. If you refuse, or if you complain even once, Sean will hand these files over to the LAPD Fraud Division tomorrow morning. You decide. Dignity or a felony conviction. Dead silence. Susan leaned forward. Sign the paper, Brittany. Sign the paper and take your punishment like an adult. Brittany looked at me with a hatred so pure, so venomous, I could feel it burning my skin. But I wasn't scared anymore. The hatred of a defeated bully holds absolutely zero power. Fine, she hissed through gritted teeth. I'll sign it. Because you're extorting me. I call it accountability, Sean replied smoothly. He pulled a thick legal document from his briefcase and set it on the table, along with a gold pen. Brittany's hand shook violently as she signed the promissory note. Susan and Sean signed as official witnesses. When it was done, Brittany stood up, turned on her heel, and marched into the guest room, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. I was left alone in the living room with my son. Mom, Michael whispered. What happens to me? I looked at my boy, the boy I raised alone, the boy I fed with money earned from standing on street corners, the boy who sat by while his wife threw my life into the mud. You have a choice to make, Michael. You either acknowledge the horrific way you've treated me, commit to fixing it, and stand by your mother, or you pack your bags and leave with her right now. Mom, please, I didn't. No excuses. I finally raised my voice, and it echoed off the ceiling. I gave you life. I sacrificed my youth, my body, and my finances so you could have a future. The bare minimum I am owed in this house is respect. If you cannot give me that, you do not belong here. He broke down. He fell to his knees in front of my chair and buried his face in his hands, sobbing with the deep, guttural cries of a man who realizes he nearly threw away the only person who truly loved him. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I was a coward. I should have protected you, but it was just so easy. It was so easy to let her take over so I didn't have to fight. I was greedy. I wanted the free rent. I wanted the easy life. I was so blind." For the first time in years, I saw genuine, raw remorse in my son's eyes. "I'll fix this, Mom. I don't know how, but I will spend the rest of my life making this up to you. You're going to start by going to intense weekly therapy," I said firmly, "both individual and with me. Are you willing to do that?" He nodded frantically. Yes, whatever you want." I reached out and placed my hand on his head. "You are my son. I will always love you. But the boundaries in this house are no longer negotiable." He wrapped his arms around my waist and held on tight, just like he did when he was 12 years old and terrified of the dark. An hour later, Sean and Susan prepared to leave. Susan hugged me tightly at the door. "Thank you for showing me the truth, Martha, and I am so deeply sorry for what my daughter put you through. You are not responsible for the sins of an adult, Susan. Take care of yourself." Sean was the last to walk out. He smiled at me from the porch. "You executed that flawlessly, Martha. I couldn't have done it without you, Sean." "Yes, you could have. You just needed the legal ammunition. The steel spine? You already had that." I locked the front door. I stood in the center of my living room, my home. And for the first time in almost 3 years, I took a deep breath, and the air tasted sweet. The next 30 days were surreal. It was like living in an alternate universe. Brittany fulfilled her end of the bargain, entirely out of fear of going to prison. But she did it with a simmering, toxic resentment. The first morning, I woke up at 6:30 a.m. I brewed a pot of coffee, sat at the kitchen island, and waited. At 7 a.m., Brittany trudged into the kitchen. She wasn't wearing her silk robe. She was wearing baggy sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt, no makeup, her hair in a messy knot. She looked like exactly what she was, a profoundly average human being stripped of her illusions of grandeur. "Good morning," I said cheerily. She grunted, opening the fridge. "Breakfast needs to be plated by 7:30 so Michael can eat before his commute. Eggs, bacon, and toast. That's how he likes it." She glared at me. "I don't know how to cook that. I only eat raw vegan." "Then you'll learn." I taught myself. You can too. I pointed out where the pans were. I walked her through how to scramble the eggs without burning them, how to fry the bacon without starting a grease fire. She was incredibly clumsy. She burnt the first batch of toast to a crisp. She undercooked the bacon, but I didn't lift a finger to help. I just sat there, sipping my coffee, watching her work. When Michael came out for breakfast, he looked at the burnt toast in shock. He looked at Brittany, then at me. "Brittany cooked this morning," I said calmly. I supervised. He sat down and ate the undercooked eggs without a single word of complaint. He thanked her, kissed her cheek, and left for work. As soon as the door closed, Brittany dumped the dirty plates in the sink and started walking toward her bedroom. "The dishes get washed immediately after we eat," I called out, not raising my voice. She stopped in her tracks. She spun around, her fists clenched. "I am not your maid, and you are not my landlord. In this house, whoever dirties a dish, washes it. That's how it's always been." We stared each other down. A silent standoff. But this time, I didn't blink. I didn't look away. Finally, she broke eye contact. She marched back to the sink, turned the water on full blast, and started scrubbing the plates violently, splashing soapy water all over her shirt. I just sat there, enjoying my coffee. The days dragged on, following the exact same pattern. I assigned her chores: vacuum the living room, scrub the guest bathroom, hand wash my delicate blouses in the sink just like she used to force me to do with her silk shirts. One afternoon, while she was furiously swiffering the kitchen floor, I walked over and inspected her work. "You missed a spot here. And under the fridge. You have to actually move the appliances, Brittany, not just wipe around them." She gripped the handle of the mop so hard her knuckles turned white. She finally snapped. "Why are you doing this? You won. You completely humiliated me. What more do you want?" "I want you to understand. I replied, my voice dangerously calm. Understand what? What it feels like to break your back working for someone, only to receive criticism in return. What it feels like to be completely invisible in the place you live, to be treated like a burden. She dropped the mop. I never treated you like a burden, didn't you? Tell me, Brittany, in 2.5 years, how many times did you say thank you when I folded your laundry? How many times did you ask me how my day was? How many times did you look at me as a human being, instead of an obstacle standing between you and $1 million payout? Silence. Heavy, crushing silence. That's what I thought. She picked up the mop. She finished cleaning the floor without saying another word. But when she looked up, I saw something shift in her eyes. It wasn't quite an apology yet, but the armor had finally cracked. By the 3rd week, the atmosphere in the house began to change. Brittany was still doing the chores, but the furious, violent energy was gone. She was just tired, defeated. One morning, she managed to cook the eggs perfectly without burning the toast. Good job, I said. She looked at me, genuinely surprised that I had complimented her. Thanks. Michael was changing, too. He was attending therapy twice a week. Our joint sessions were brutal. We unburied decades of trauma, guilt, and resentment. But it was working. He was stepping up. He was doing his own laundry. He was coming home early to help with dinner. On the 28th day of the month, Michael came into the kitchen while I was putting away groceries. Brittany was asleep. Mom, we need to talk. I set down a box of pasta. What's on your mind, sweetie? I told Brittany I want a divorce. I stopped moving. I looked at him. Are you sure? Yes. Therapy opened my eyes to a lot of things, and the biggest realization is that Brittany and I bring out the absolute worst in each other. She manipulated me into abandoning my morals, and I let her do it because I was weak. I can't be married to someone who looks at the woman who sacrificed everything for me and sees nothing but a dollar sign. I can't do it. He started crying softly. I wrapped my arms around him. You're going to be okay, Michael. Can I stay here for a while? Paying rent, of course. I just want to rebuild my life, rebuild our relationship. This is your home, Michael. It always will be. But under the new rules. I know, Mom. I know. Day 30 arrived. Brittany had her 2 suitcases packed and sitting by the front door. The exact same suitcases she arrived with. I was sitting on the front porch, drinking my morning coffee. She walked out and stood next to my rocking chair. My Uber is 5 minutes away, she said quietly. I see. She looked out at the San Fernando Valley skyline. Martha, I want to tell you something before I go. I looked up at her. For the very first time, her eyes held zero malice, just profound regret. I am so sorry. For everything. I know you probably don't believe me, and I don't blame you, but this last month, it taught me more than I've learned in my entire life. What did it teach you? That honest work has dignity, that the elderly aren't disposable props, and that you are the strongest person I've ever met. She took a shaky breath. My mom was right. I turned into a monster, but I don't want to be that person anymore. I'm moving back into my mom's duplex in Reseda. I applied for a job as a receptionist at a dental office. Real work. And I'm going to pay you back every single cent of that $6,200, even if it takes me years. I looked at her for a long time. I think she really meant it. Sometimes, people have to have their entire ego shattered before they can figure out how to be a decent human being. I wish you the best of luck, Brittany. Do you forgive me? I thought about the boxes in the rain. I thought about the hospital. Forgiveness takes a long time, Brittany, but I'll tell you this. I don't carry any hatred in my heart for you anymore. Go build a life that doesn't require tearing someone else down to succeed. She nodded. Her Uber pulled up to the curb. She picked up her bags. Thank you, Martha. For not sending me to jail. For giving me a lesson instead of a cage. Take care of yourself, Brittany. She got into the back of the black sedan, and it drove away down the suburban street. And just like that, the darkest chapter of my life came to an end. Epilogue. It's been 6 months since that day. Michael still lives with me, but he pays $1,500 a month in rent. He insisted. I'm a grown man, Mom. It's the right thing to do. We cook together on Sunday nights. We sit in the living room and listen to the new Frank Sinatra vinyl he bought me to replace the ones that were thrown away. He recently started dating a wonderful woman, a special education teacher, who looks me in the eye, asks me how my day was, and brings me fresh flowers from the farmer's market. I told Michael, she's a keeper, but if she ever changes, don't you ever let yourself go blind again. He promised me he wouldn't. Brittany kept her word. On the 1st of every month, a $500 Zelle transfer hits my bank account. She's paid back $3,000 so far. Susan calls me every couple of weeks to chat. She says Brittany is working 40 hours a week at the clinic, paying rent, and slowly unlearning her entitlement. I'm genuinely happy for them. Ruth is still my best friend. We get lunch at the local diner every Thursday. She tells me I look 10 years younger. I tell her it's because I'm no longer carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. Sean Miller still comes by for dinner once a month. I make him a massive pot roast, and he eats until he can barely move. Nobody cooks like you, Martha, he always says. The house is still mine. The deed is locked in a safety deposit box at Chase Bank. I drew up a new, ironclad trust with Sean to protect the estate. Sometimes, late at night, I sit out on the back patio. I listen to the California breeze rustling the leaves of the lemon tree. I look up at the stars, and I talk to Henry. I did it, sweetheart. I protected what we built. I protected our home, and I protected myself. And I swear, I can feel him smiling back at me in the warm night air. I'm sharing this story because I know there are thousands of women out there going through the exact same thing, women who feel invisible in their own homes. Women who are being manipulated, used, and discarded by the people they sacrificed everything for. I want to tell you, you are not alone. You are so much stronger than you think you are. You deserve respect. You deserve dignity. And it is absolutely never too late to put your foot down and say, enough. I did it at 67 years old. After nearly dying, I took my power back. And you can too. If this story touched your heart, if you felt the anger, the hope, and the ultimate victory right alongside me, leave a comment letting me know what state or country you're watching from, and if you've ever had to set hard boundaries in your own life. Like this video so the algorithm shares it with someone who really needs to hear this message today, and subscribe to the channel for more stories of resilience, justice, and taking back your power. Remember, true wealth isn't what you own. It's what you refuse to let people take from you. See you in the next video.